Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm recording today on the land of the Anishinaabe, Odawa, and Mississauga people. I'm up here about 3 hours north of Toronto in Ontario, Canada, and a lot of people call this area the Bruce Peninsula. If you are new here, you might not know that I'm also a mom of three, a yoga teacher, and the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. But if you are a returning listener, you know how things go around here. This podcast was created for you, the yoga teacher, so that each and every week you feel connected to the information and ideas that are here to support you as you build your yoga business, because it is not all easy if you are a yoga teacher and an entrepreneur. It's especially not easy if you're working really hard and you don't have time to take a break. Now, if you've ever had a quote-unquote 9-to-5 job where you work for someone else, you know what it's like to have your work hours clearly outlined, as well as your time off. And I feel like sometimes when we become an entrepreneur, especially if we're a yoga teacher and we're working for ourselves, it can be so easy to focus on the work and forget about time off until you hit burnout, or you start to really resent your schedule, or you're just kind of running on fumes, going day to day, but not fitting in the things that you really want to do. In today's episode, we are going to talk about and work together to put your time off as a top priority. 100%, you can love the work that you're doing. And at the same time, you need time to refuel and time to connect to the people who you really care about and want to spend time with. We want to build a schedule that is not only sustainable, but is also your dream schedule. Because that's why you became an entrepreneur, am I right? A huge bonus of running your own business and working for yourself when it's set up really well is that you are then in charge of your schedule and it isn't set by someone else. Now, before we get right into this today, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, OfferingTreel. If you are a yoga teacher and you want to simplify everything and anything to do with having an online yoga business, make sure to check out OfferingTreel. I use and love their software, and I tell yoga teachers about it all the time because your students can register, pay, fill out their waiver form, get Zoom links, get an email confirmation, even get text confirmation and reminders, all automatically using OfferingTreel. And OfferingTreel has given our podcast listeners a special discount over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Pelvic Health Professionals. I have some exciting news and events coming up this month and next month on Pelvic Health Professionals. And if you're like, what is that, Shannon? This is an online membership for anyone who wants to learn the most up-to-date information about pelvic health from the leading worldwide guest experts out there. To check it out, visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Okay, let's get back into talking about time off. Now, this applies to you if you're working full-time or part-time, if you're working at one job but then building your yoga business on the side. I get how this feels. I did the same thing. And this especially applies to you so that you don't burn out in this busy season. And I also want to note, if you are caring for others, let's say parents or children or a new puppy, this is a busy season for you. And I was where you are when I was raising my 3 kids and they were running around as little kids, toddlers and young school age, and really needed a lot of mom time. And I get it now because March, if you're listening in real time, March 2023, this is a month where I go and I help my dad, and my son goes with me. One of my kids goes with me, and we make maple syrup. It's our family maple syrup business. And I've chosen to, and I'm really grateful that my schedule allows me to go and be part of that. And that's still, something outside of my work. So sometimes we're in a spot in life where we don't get days off. Like maple syrup season is like that for me. Raising little kids is sure like that. Sometimes we are in a space of work where we're just in this sprint and we just have to get things done and we can't take a day off while we do that sprint. Sometimes when we're caring for others, it feels like we're always working. We have no time off. So I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge that we're all at different spots with this. And I've been in many of those spots of like super busy or those work sprints or caring for others. For this podcast episode today, we're going to focus on paid work, maybe for someone else, but also for yourself. So some job where you get paid. But I want you to know if you are doing work where you're not getting paid, let's say like looking after toddlers or looking after a parent, you might be at this place where you just have to get really creative on how this is going to work so that you can get some time off. And that might be asking people for help, or it might be getting creative in some other way. Today's podcast is all about focusing on the time we take off from work. And it's an actionable podcast. So if you're out walking your dog, or you're driving around right now, or you're at home jumping on the trampoline while you listen, come back to this part at some point with a paper and pen. That doesn't mean that you can't listen, but come back to it with paper and pen. If you're like, I'm going to do this right now, Shannon, I'm going to go get my paper and my pen, my journal, whatever you need, a blanket, a tea, totally up to you. Then while you're doing that, I want to give a special shout out to our sponsor, OfferingTreel. I was just over looking at their website today and looking at some of their blog posts. Oh my gosh, they have so many. If you haven't checked out their blog posts, I will link to a great one in the show notes. It's written by our very own Sinead, and it's called 10 Tips to Boost Your Income as a Yoga Teacher. So this article is packed with really good ideas if you're looking at how can I increase my income right now. And I want to tell you that the one thing that has helped me to increase my income, which isn't on the list, is to automate more things. So OfferingTreel is one software that allows me to do that. I like that people can go to my website, go to my link, book whatever they're doing with me online, pay, fill out the waiver, agree to my terms and conditions, and it's all automatic when I send them my booking link. And then they get emails and text reminders and a Zoom link, and I don't even have to think about it. So if you want to try out OfferingTreel, they have a 14-day trial. And then if you decide to stay on with them and you really like their software like I do, then use the coupon code to save yourself a bit of money. That's at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Okay, hopefully you have now gathered your whatever you need to do a bit of journal time. I really want you to do this step. I know that you can feel like, you know what, I'll do that later. I don't have time right now. If you're very serious about getting some time off and making your schedule what you really want it to be, please get out pen and paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. I prefer to write by hand. I just think it impacts my brain differently, and there's been studies on that as well. So great. If you can do this by hand, do that. I've come up with an outline for us today, but you are more than welcome at any point to go outside the lines and make this your own. So if you get journaling and you're like, wow, something's really coming up and I just want to follow this thread, go for it. If you want to change the questions in some way, amazing. I will link to these in our show notes. That's over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/314. If you're like, oh my gosh, Shannon, you're going too fast. How am I going to remember these? I want to see them. Don't worry. I've got you covered. We take the notes for you. If you're out walking and you can't remember the episode number, no worries. Head on over to theconnectedyogateacher.com. Look for the search bar at the top and then put in plan your breaks, or probably just the word breaks or break will bring this episode up. All right. So feel free to pause this podcast at any time as you journal here. The first journal prompt is, on an ideal workday, I feel. Now, this is a common thread through all of these. I want you to visualize or feel, what does that look like? What does that feel like to you? So an ideal workday. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next journal prompt here. But again, remember to pause between each one so that you can really take your time and journal. Or you can see the whole list over in our show notes and grab that so that you have it in front of you if having the words right in front of you helps. So the next one is, I can easily get my meaningful work done between the hours of blank to blank. And don't skip this one, please. Come back to it if it feels tough. You can skip it for now, but please come back to it. And notice with compassion what feelings start to come up as you outline your work hours. If there's a lot of feelings coming up around it, write them down if that helps. Okay, the next one is, an ideal start to my day feels. And the next one, before I start work for the day, I want to. And this is where you'll list the things that you need to do in order to feel ready to start your workday. They're in no particular order, just like things like, I don't know, have your shower or brush your teeth or make your bed or get your kids off to school. All of the things that you need to do right now in this season to feel ready for work. The next one is, my lunch break is blank hours. And in that time, I want you to finish this sentence by painting the picture of how this feels and what you want your time to look like for your lunch break. And I specifically made it blank hours because I really want you to think about, like, in case you were going to put down 10 minutes, 10 minutes is not a lot of time unless you really prep your lunches before. And I would challenge you on that. So I've put hours. You could say half an hour, but what would it feel like to give yourself a lunch break that is an hour? Is that okay? Do you feel like that's not acceptable? And if so, I would ask why that is. Remember, we're really trying to outline what we would like to happen. So this is in the average week. Sometimes our lunch break might be smaller. Sometimes this might all change. But we're outlining where we're going with this. Okay, the next one is, between work, I take blank minute breaks where So I want you to outline how long are your breaks in terms of minutes between work, and what do you do in that time? Do you walk outside? Do you stretch? Do you lie down on the floor, legs up the wall? Do you jump around? Do you find a restorative yoga pose? Do you sing or do the laundry or do the dishes or something? Just notice here what you put in your breaks and try and find something that brings you more energy. All right, the next journal prompt is, at the end of my workday, I feel. Next is, to close my workday, I do these 3 things. So what are the 3 things that you want to get done to feel like you're ready to close things down and you're also ready for tomorrow, the next workday, or maybe your day off? Next journal prompt is, before I move into quote unquote after work time, and finish the sentence. So this is something that would help you with the transition from working to your time off. And you might even be like moving from working to working, you might be working away on your work and then you have to go prep dinner for your family and clean and, unpack school bags or something, or go walk the dog. What would be something that would help you to transition? Even if it's like, taking a breath or 3 breaths to yourself and really maybe it's checking things off your to-do list. What makes you feel like, I'm going to now move into my time off? Okay, the next question is, in my average work week, I have blank days off. So in a 7-day span, how many days off do you have? Some of you may already know if you've heard me talk about this on the podcast at all. I really like yoga teachers to aim to have 2 days off of work that is like, I get paid to do this work. That includes working for someone else and also working for yourself. And I do realize that if you are in a space where you're raising young kids or looking after your elders or in some care capacity, it may not feel like you have time off, but I want you to try and find like the time off with at least 2 days if you can a week. That might feel really out of your reach. And please know, I remember feeling like that. I remember feeling like if I don't work 7 days a week, how am I going to support these 3 little kids as a single mom? And I managed to do it. So I know you can do it. All right, very last journal prompt here. Is there anything else that you want to feel or outline to have your ideal work week? Is there anything that you feel is missing here? So if you just listen to these questions and you're like, okay, now I'm going back to do them, don't forget to pause and really take your time with this. Don't forget to like ask yourself, how does this really feel? How do I want to feel? What does this look like? As detailed as possible here. Make it messy. Don't worry about making it perfect. And once you've done this journaling, read it over. Add anything along the way as you review it and you read it over, and circle anything that looks super important. And is there a way that you can put a reminder somewhere about this? So maybe your journal page, it's like one page and you're like, that's going on my wall. But maybe you make a page on its own or a small sticky note that captures the important things. Like, I work from this time to this time, my lunch break is this long, or maybe you put it on your calendar in some way. I just want you to have it so that you're reminded of this. It's not just some page in your journal and it's gone. I have one more tip to share with you. It's something that has been working so well for me. Oh my gosh, I love this tip. I don't book anything. As a general rule, and believe me, like I know that rules are there sometimes to be broken, but most weeks I really stick to this. I don't book anything in the week that I'm currently in. So let's say on Monday, someone asks me, hey, can we meet this Thursday? I let them know, hey, I can't meet this Thursday. Even if I have availability on my calendar, I book for the next week. And that may not seem fair, but it's okay. Like, that rule all by itself makes me not pack my calendar because I'll just keep adding things into the existing week. It makes all the difference. If you are skeptical of it, that's okay. You can try it out, or you can just say, nope, not for me. I really hope that this helps you to outline your daily and weekly break time. Next week, I'm going to be talking about responses from yoga teachers from a recent Facebook question that I posted in the Connected Yoga Teacher group where I asked about taking time off. And I loved the responses so much in there. And I wanted to talk more about it. So we'll do that next week here on the podcast. If you want to add to this conversation, meet us over in the Connected Yoga Teacher Facebook group. Tell us how you outline your ideal week or your ideal day or what really helps you with regards to this. Or leave me a voice message. You can find out how to do that on our website. If you go to theconnectedyogateacher.com, there's a voice message button right there. All of the notes for today's episode are over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/314. You can grab the journal prompts that I used today. You can use them in any way. You can save them somewhere in a document. If you do end up sharing them with other people, it would be really nice if you also tell them, hey, I found out about this on the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. If you want to hang out together in real time, there are some exciting things coming up. So right now, everything's online at this point where I'm hanging out until someone has an idea of where we should get together in person. Now it's coming on to spring. As this episode comes out, I would love to see how I can get out and see some of the Connected Yoga Teacher listeners in real life. That would be amazing. So if you have an idea, let me know. If there's something that you're going to and you're like, Shannon, this is a cool event for yoga teachers, tell me about it. For now, in March and April, here are my plans. March the 20th, We have a guest expert coming in, Dr. Neeti Sharma, for all of our pelvic health professional members. You can join us if you'd like to. We're going to learn about the pudendal nerve, its anatomy, the common sites of irritation, the symptoms, when there's an issue with it, and what that looks like if there's an injury or something with that nerve. Then, April the 11th to the 23rd, 2023, anyone can register for this. We're doing yoga online live with Shelly Prosco. And yes, there is a replay if you can't make it live. The time is 10:30 a.m. Mountain or 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Shelly is going to lead us through a 7-week pelvic floor and whole person approach. You can find out more about this or sign up over at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Look under yoga on the main page. And then under yoga, it will be called Balance Flow Yoga. And that's the 7-week series with Shelly Prosco. And if you're listening to this podcast and these dates are long gone, not to worry. There are replays for both of these things inside of pelvichealthprofessionals.com. And a special note to members, you get access to both of these events. It's included in your membership. Huge shout out of thanks to Suzanne Crunch and Sinead for making this podcast episode today possible. And thank you to you, dear listener, for listening all the way to the end. I cannot wait to hear what comes out of this episode, to hear if your schedule feels like it's a little more open or a little more what you're working towards. We can keep asking ourselves to do this as entrepreneurs. So anytime you start to get stuck with your schedule, come back to this episode. Also, I'm curious to know, what will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, to your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?